Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Down the Yellow Brick Pod. Tara here. I'm joined by my co-host, EmKay, and we have a very special guest, a special episode today that is kind of closing a loop on our time dabbling in another Portal fantasy, Wonderland. Last season on the pod, we started a series where we would compare other Portal fantasies that have the popularity as Oz does, and see where there's resemblances, see how they're in relationship with one another. And we really wanted to conclude our time tumbling down this rabbit hole with a modern reimagining, and we waited ever so patiently for the publication of Alice with a Y to hit the US shelves, top of 2026, following the adventures of Alice, the Alice we know and love, her granddaughter Alice with a Y instead of the I, that's how she spells it, to a Wonderland that is somewhat at war. So we're so happy to welcome New York Times bestselling author and middle grade fantasy maven, Anna James. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, we're so delighted. Thank you so much for joining us. We were so excited to read this book. I'm also a big fan of Pages and Co. So just delighted to get to chat. And just to dive in right away, if you could choose anywhere to hibernate on the Wonderland map today, where would it be? Just to bring us in, you know?
Can I, shall I use the OG Wonderland map, as in
whatever you
Carol's
want,
map,
or
or can I
yours.
pull in?
Love that.
Okay.
Or yours.
Wonderland's a tricky one, isn't it? Because this comes up when we're thinking about, with Pages and Co. My debut series is about people who can travel inside a book. So often I'm talking to people about like where you would go. And Wonderland's actually tricky because I actually think I would deal extremely badly with being in Wonderland. I think I would
I
find
agree.
it
I
like
think
very
same.
overstimulating.
Stress,
And there's no
anxiety.
road. There's no
There's
road.
no rules. There's
People
no,
trying to trick you.
right, just like
Creatures.
why it's a lot for Alice that
Mhm.
you because all those things, like I think also we sometimes have like a romanticized, or not even romanticized, but a sort of sanitized version of things like, oh, the tea party. But when you read the
So
scene again,
delightful.
there's no cake. Everything's very
It's
overwhelming.
messy.
Yeah,
Chaos.
but I think it would
Disarray.
still perhaps be still one of the probably preferable options. Like I don't want to be doing like a caucus race. I don't want to be in the pool of tears.
Absolutely
I'm
not.
like
Yeah,
going through and
it's
I'm
too
like,
much.
yeah, maybe I would hang out with like the griffin, but the
That's a
mock
good
turtle
choice.
is a bummer, like
Yeah.
but
Not a
that feels
lot
like kind of
of great
safe.
choices.
Maybe the White Rabbit's house actually
Yes.
before Alice gets huge in it.
Yeah,
Maybe that
just
would
a
be
Yes.
normal
a
house.
house. Yeah.
Yes.
So then
Very
such
calico
a
critters.
I
Yes.
should say something dramatic and authorly, but I'm like, where is the safest place
That is a
to
safe
be?
That's
space.
actually
I'm
smart.
being
Don't
too
eat anything.
literal.
Don't
Yeah.
touch the cookies,
I
the drink
always have to
machine.
approach these questions very literally. Like, my husband's always doing these, it's like daft other half questions where it's like, would you love me if, and like the other day he was like, would you love me if I danced everywhere instead of walking? And my brain just can't like, I'm like, well, is it a medical condition or is it a choice that you've
I'm
made?
the
Like, I'm like,
same
I need
way.
to know
That's
the
Like, explain
information.
more, give me context.
I
I know this
can't
is a
tell you.
whimsical question, but like,
Right.
Are you forced to dance everywhere, or
Right.
is
It
it
do you
makes a
need help?
difference.
is
Right.
it you
When it's
trying to
like,
be
would you love
whimsical?
me if I was a worm? I'm like, well, do you know what? It really matters whether you've always been a worm or not. Because like,
Right.
no, I wouldn't love
What
you if you
kind of
were just a
worm?
worm. But like if you had turned
Yeah.
into a worm, is it a reversible spell? Is it a permanent
He's
situation?
like,
Am I
this is
allowed to
not
get
what I
remarried?
wanted.
Yeah. But I'm always the same. So apologies in advance for this whole podcast because
I love it.
despite writing a whimsical
Oh,
book, I'm like, I need to know the
This is
the
why you wrote
boundaries of
it,
the
though.
I need
questions.
to
I
Yeah,
love
think this
it.
perhaps.
through.
Yeah.
That is so great.
I love this. Oh my
So we're
gosh.
in the White
Well,
Rabbit's house
we're
today.
there.
Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that feels correct.
Wow.
We're protected, we're safe. So I love this idea of book wandering, diving into
Thank you.
other lands, and you're traveling into your favorite stories. I'm obsessed also just even looking at the Pages and Co. covers. I'm like, I want to go.
They're
I want to dive
beautiful.
in, please. So much whimsy, so much fun. So we want to hear about the books that raised you and how
Mm.
The Wizard of Oz, how Alice in Wonderland fit into all of that. So what's sort of your book DNA growing up?
Yeah. So, I mean, the honest answer is neither Oz nor Wonderland were there at the very beginning. They were later additions. So, I think one of the key books for me was Anne of Green Gables.
Ah,
Um,
There we
me
it's
go.
too.
I
Yes.
just love that book. I think as well
I
of
think it's
the
a perfect
classics from
book.
that era. It dates so
Hmm.
well. It's one of the only books of that era that you can recommend to a child now with no qualms. You don't
Yeah.
really need to give any context. It's just every time I go back to it, I am enriched and inspired by it. I think Anne Shirley is probably my all-time favorite fictional character. Like I made
Mm.
my husband watch the 80s TV show. I was like, you
You know,
Yeah.
can't know
sadly,
me.
I'm
Yeah, you
rewatching
can't
it
know
right
me
now.
if you don't
Yes.
know this.
This is part of me.
Yes,
I'm
so
trying to
that's
force my
up
husband
there.
to. Yeah.
It has to be done. It's that and the 1995 Pride and Prejudice. I was like, this is required watching if
Yeah.
you want to
If
marry
you are
me.
with me, this is what
Yeah.
you must do.
Yeah, yeah.
The
So
90s
that
really
that's really there.
understood that time.
They
It's so
knew.
funny,
Yes,
right? Like
yes.
I think of like The Secret Garden, like
the
that
Secret
there was
Garden
a movie.
film,
Yep. That
the
whole
Little
thing,
Princess
everything with
film.
that. Yep.
Like all of that was huge
Although
in the 90s.
the Little Princess film is a different ending to the book. Do you know this?
Yes.
Like,
And
Mm.
of
I grew
course
up
you
on
do.
Shirley Temple. I grew up on the Shirley Temple
Okay.
one, which is so different. And I
Because
love that one.
I accidentally ruined
Ah,
my American best friend's like childhood because she hadn't read the book, and I just mentioned like
sorry.
in passing, and she was like, "No, he's not dead," and I was like, "Yeah, he is." Anyway, sorry, spoilers to anyone listening who hasn't read the book.
You've had
Who is
many,
he?
you've had
Who
many
is
years.
No,
we don't
he could
know.
be anybody. Yeah,
Could be
who's
we don't know
dead?
who he is.
Mystery.
So that was really, and actually, The Secret Garden was really in there. E. Nesbit was a real one for me as well. The Railway Children, which I don't think is as much of a thing in the US. For ages, I thought The Boxcar Children was the same thing with a different title. Not the same thing.
I think I
Mm,
did too.
different, different.
Different
Railway
books.
boxcar.
Is that E.
Totally
Nesbit?
different
Is
worlds.
Railway?
Yes.
E. Nesbit is
Um,
huge at Books of Wonder, which is funny
oh,
because no one
I
knows
love
what E.
that.
Nesbit, that is.
She's another person who I
Mm.
think dates the books like
I've
date
heard that.
well. And her
Hmm.
like Five Children in It books, like
Yeah.
she's wonderful. I think she and the other, sorry, I should limit it to Diana Wynne Jones is another really, really big one for me.
Yes. I'm just getting into
Um,
her. Love, love.
she's having a real resurgence in the UK at the moment, which I think is because a lot of writers of my generation who read her are now being like, you know, the wave of authors
Interviewed.
coming through.
Yeah.
So we're talking about like Robin
Sure.
Stevens loves her, Kate Rundle
Yeah.
loves her, like
Love that.
so
I love Kate Brundle. Yes.
she's fab. Yeah. There's just been all the Chrestomanci books have been reissued with these beautiful new covers
Beautiful
here.
covers. Yeah.
I
Mm.
think probably she's the person that had the biggest impact on me, a writer as well, because she's so playful with genre, I think, and like with the fantasy genre, and shows that if you want to break the rules of a genre, you have to like know and respect them.
Yes. Love
I
that.
don't like satirical books that are snarky about what they're being satirical about. I think you can only make jokes about things that you love. If like I think
Mm.
it should be undercut with affection, otherwise it's just like mean-spirited. And I think that
Hmm.
she does so much fun stuff with there's a book called The Dark Lord of Dirkholm, which is more of a YA book, which is kind of like a riff on its. I don't know if you've read it. It's imagining like it's about a fantasy land
I've
where there's
seen
these
it. I see it daily.
it's so good. And it's tours from our world come through. They like people pay to do like a tour of a fantasy land. And people
Whoa.
get assigned roles. So it's about this family who are assigned. The dad is like, you have to be the Dark Lord this year. And but it like ravages the country. Like they like have to change their house and they're like it's like also very sharp on like cultural tourism and capitalism, whilst
Mm.
also being a very, very affectionate look at the fantasy genre and the tropes that we expect to see. So I think
Wow.
just in terms of how to approach like fantasy and genre, I think she had a really big impact on her as a writer, not just as a reader.
I love that.
Fascinating.
And like,
She's wonderful.
what was the Wonderland in Oz for you of
Oh
childhood
yeah.
anyway?
Yeah,
Did
when
you
did it
see
come in?
films too? Like how did that
Okay,
trickle in?
so Wonderland I read as a child and found it too weird, honestly, the first time
I
I read
think
it. I
I
think
did too.
Ooh. I love the
Too
it's a
weird.
film, but
it's
the book, yeah, the book, once you pick that up, you're like, whoa.
yeah,
Kind of similar to Oz.
It's
well, I
yeah.
didn't read the Oz
Oz is
books
simpler.
until as a
Oz is
Mm.
simpler.
adult. So I'd seen the
Us
film and
too.
I loved the film,
Hmm.
of course. And then I was aware it was a book, but do you know what? I didn't realize there were so many books until I went to Books of Wonder. When I was
There you
there
go.
on my first
Educating the
tour,
people.
yeah, for the Pages One tour, I went into your store and I was just like, oh my goodness me. Like, because you have that incredible, I don't know if this was ages ago, but I assume you
No, it's
Oh,
still
still have
there.
an
it's still
incredible
there,
selection of
curated.
first editions. And I was like, oh my goodness me. And then when I was writing later books in the Pages series, and I was obviously looking at things that are out of copyright, I wanted to use Oz, but I was like, but obviously I need to read the actual books before I decide whether it works. So I read the first
Hmm.
four books.
Good for
Nice,
And
nice.
that is
you.
when I read the books and it's had so much fun. They're also really weird, but in a fun way. It's fun when
Yes, they
it's
are.
You
so
ended on the
familiar,
weirdest.
but yeah,
Dorothy and
The
the
fourth
Wizard
one
is
is
the
so
weirdest.
yeah,
fun. The
The vegetable
piglets,
I
the
people,
wizard's
love
the
that.
piglets.
piglets.
They're unsettling, aren't they? Like some of
That's a
the
great word
and
for it.
they're such a it's weird when the world is so familiar, but there's so much that's different because you feel like you know Oz, but obviously everything is slightly different. The characters do different things, and then also as you read, the characters then go on to do different things. Oh my goodness, crucial Oz lore for me is that I didn't read the original books, but I did read the novelization of Return to Oz,
Stop!
Joni
I love
Dench.
that. Joan D.
not the L.
Dench. We
Frank.
know the author.
Oh my goodness. But in
Oh,
the
we've covered it.
classic 90s kid version, I don't even know where I got it from. I just, when you're
It's
like,
It
one of those.
arrived.
It was
It
like
right,
arrived.
a
right.
dusty
I
antique
think I
I
got it
book.
from my
owned
community
it.
pool, to be
So,
honest with
right,
you.
right. I feel like
Yeah.
maybe someone like, it was like a hand-me-down. Like I used to get books
Just in your
from,
house.
yeah, like it wasn't a library book because I owned it
I was
because I read
obsessed with
it.
it.
Same, because it was so, but yeah, it was the novelization of the scary film. And I read
Yes.
that book so many times because I was so, when you're like,
Oh.
can't look away, I was so scared by
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in my head, I almost didn't even really connect it to the film. I think for me, they felt like quite different
They are
Yeah, that was my,
different.
yeah.
stories. Like Dorothy, like, but the start with her in, like, it's so scary and dark, and the
The
flood
electroshock.
terrified me. And obviously,
Yeah.
then all
The
the
flood.
horrifying stuff that
And
she
everything
encounters
else
with
that
the,
comes
yeah.
after.
But I read that so many times, and I can picture it so viscerally. The end scene in particular, where she's having to choose the items, I
Yes.
don't know, it just really, really got into my head as a child. So I can't believe I forgot about that book when we were
That's
talking about
big.
it. I was like, that's my biggest bit of Oz lore is that because it's like it's so much its own thing, isn't it? And but then it
It's
was weird
so
reading
much
Yeah.
its
the
own thing.
Yeah.
book and seeing elements of that story
Yeah.
in it and having to remind myself this is the original, even though I feel like it's a
Return to
spin on
Oz.
the other way around because it's just how I read them.
Love
Um,
that.
so
You're in the
so then
minority with that, and I love it.
it was great. And then I got
Well,
into
not in our
Oz and reading
community,
them
but
for
yes.
Yeah.
yeah, no, yeah. And I for pages I used the famous scenes because obviously that's like what makes sense for book wandering. But you have that discrepancy between all the book wandering scenes are true to the books, but obviously sometimes the cultural imagination is different because of films. And so, but it's very true. The book Wandering to Oz is true to the books. So I really enjoyed kind of delving into that. It's the fame. It's the going up to Oz and spending time in Oz that she's and I actually use the hot air balloon becomes key plot point. Because I had to work out something, and I was like, oh my goodness, I can just do a riff on the. I'm sorry, I'm being really vague because I don't
Yes.
want to do spoilers, but I realized that actually I could lean into that, and that really opened up a whole sort
Hmm.
of like plot line that ended up being really useful for me for the second half of the series. So that's Oz. And yeah, Wonderland also just read it young, read it, thought it was a bit odd, didn't see the Disney film as a child, and then came back to it when I was writing Pages and Co. Because the very first book
Wow.
wandering scene is the tea party, because I wanted to do something very, very famous for the first book wandering scene because I need, from a writing perspective, I need to use that scene to explain how book wandering works. So you
Hmm.
can't also be explaining how book wandering works and also having to explain the scene that they're going into. So I
Right.
needed something where almost everyone has some familiarity with what this looks like because otherwise there's too much exposition going on in one scene. So going back to Wonderland, I reread it for that. And I ended up just really falling in love with it then. And that's it, like when the sort of, I think, seed of Alice with a Y crept in.
Yeah, yeah. I was wondering if
Mm.
that made like came to be while
Hmm.
you were working at on Pages and Co. That's so cool. Okay,
Love
so
that.
we know a little bit about your Yellow Brick Road. You started your professional career as a school librarian, and now you're this
Yes.
New York Times bestselling author. So, what would
Woo.
you say were some of the most pivotal turns on your
Mm,
Yellow Brick Road that led to you going into your writing career?
that's such a good question. It's a big question, isn't it? One of the key ones was my English teacher when I was in doing my A levels, which you don't do A levels, when I was 17, 18. Um, he was so formative. He actually passed away last year. But he was, I think, the first person who really made me feel like I could write. Um, he was just one of those exceptional teachers who he was a great teacher of the curriculum, but he also, recommended all of us books that he thought we would love as individuals. And I
Like a
loved doing,
pharmacist.
That's really
yeah,
sweet.
exactly.
Here's your
And
prescription.
it
Here's your
honestly felt like
prescription.
that for
2
sure.
doses
Mm.
of half
Of
magic, one
Wonderland.
Sherlock
Yes.
Holmes. Yes.
Oh my goodness, I just tangenting, but I read Half Magic for the first time last
So
year.
good.
It's not a thing here, but Rachel Kong chose it for. So I have a podcast where I speak to writers about their most beloved children's or YA book, and
That's cool.
Rachel Kong, who wrote Goodbye Vitamin and Real Americans, she chose Half Magic, and it's part of the fun actually doing the podcast is reading people's picks, and then I end up like
Love
yeah
it.
reading a lot of books that kind of passed me by or weren't popular in the UK. But yeah, Mr. Weir was an exceptional teacher. I loved writing my coursework so much. I wrote about this is such a 17-year-old thing to do, but I wrote about like the anti-heroes in The Catcher in the Rye and Vernon Godlittle. And Vernon Godlittle was a book that he
Yes.
recommended to me, very much not on the curriculum. And I have such memories of writing that coursework, and he opened up a way of thinking about books to me,
Mm.
and I felt like I was doing like, I guess like a puzzle almost. I think no teachers I'd had kind of opened up that way of thinking about books. Like it's all like analyze this and analyze that. But like
Hmm.
he brought such purpose to that and such joy to like thinking about how stories work. And instead of a kind of very dry analysis, like really kind of getting to the heart of why fiction affects us and why it works and why writers are doing such things. And I just remember it opened something in my brain doing that piece of coursework, and it opened a different way of thinking about reading and writing. And he also just told me I was a good writer, which my parents are wonderful in many ways. They are quite strict and not artsy, and were a little horrified by the idea of having two daughters. My sister is very artsy, she draws, and they didn't know what to do with us. And they were very strict. And I remember at parents' evening, like Mr. Weir being like, no, Anna really can write. And they were like, no, you're
Oh,
just
Mm.
being
oh
like
my
doing a
gosh, she
teacher thing.
vouched.
And
Yes.
he
Oh,
just really kept telling them and me, I, I
It
yeah,
does
not to go into
matter.
it.
It
Yeah, I
really
wasn't really
matters.
like
it's a big
raised
deal.
being praised ever. I think it's why goodness knows why I've gone into authoring, where like so much is to do with external validation. But I mean, maybe
Hmm.
that's a response to the fact that I wasn't really like, it was a very like praise isn't a good thing. It like, you shouldn't feel proud of yourself. And needless to say, it was a very religious upbringing. But he was just the first person who was just like positive and made me think that perhaps I had some ability with it. And so that was a key thing. I think not doing English at university was a key thing because I did history, which still was all about writing and storytelling and voices and people. But
It's cool.
I think allowed me to keep a very pure relationship with reading, I
Yeah,
guess. It
not
was
beat it
always something for
over the head.
pleasure.
Yeah.
And obviously many people study English and still love reading, but I think for me it was a good one. And then it's hard to pick out specifics of school librarianing, but it was inevitably a massive influence because you just saw every day the impact that fiction
Yeah.
had on young people. You saw them find the book that turned them into a reader.
Oh.
Like, and it was such a long time. There was a girl in year 11, so she's like 15, 16, and she used to have her IT lessons in the library. And the whole time I worked there, I tried to convince her to read. She was like a very cool girl, like very
Hmm.
popular, and she didn't read. And then when she came back for her last year, she was asking me what I'd done over the summer, and I said I'd been to Edinburgh Festival. And she was like, "Oh, Miss, you really like books, don't you?" And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not just trying to get you to read because it's my job. Like I
Right.
love it. And she was like, okay, go on then. Give me a book and I'll
Go
try
on
it.
then.
And I was like, oh my goodness, this is the most important book I've ever recommended because
Oof.
she's gonna decide
She's
if she
gonna give
likes
it a go.
reading
This is
based
the
on this
one.
one book. And I gave her Paper Aeroplanes by Dorno Porter, which is a YA book
Yeah.
about, well, crucially, it's about cool girls. It's not about like bookish girls, like, because we're actually very
Mm.
well represented in fiction, obviously. And she
Yes.
took it and she came back after the weekend and she slammed it down on the library desk and she was like, I need another one. And it just like one
Oh
of
my
my,
Oh my gosh, that's a
it
beautiful
gosh.
was just the
story.
That is
best
like a
feeling
movie
ever.
moment.
Oh, and what was because she was
I
so
need
popular
another.
as well, everyone wanted to read
Yeah.
that book because she'd
She
read
had
it. I had
influence.
teachers coming to talk to me being
Setting a
like, why
trend.
is everybody reading? And I'm like, it's because Sophie's read a
She's
book.
the
Yeah.
one. She's the leader.
I had to buy so many copies of
Sophie
that
changed
book.
literacy for
Yeah.
that
We
For
grade.
still,
this
do you know?
community.
Yeah, truly though. And sometimes still like, I sometimes still get a message from her on Instagram, like telling me something she's read. And like,
Stop it. You changed her
it's,
life.
it's,
And you're
it's
probably so
just,
cool to her. You're
I'm not
writing.
sure about
She like
that.
talks about
Like,
you.
No,
she's
Sophie thinks
stayed
you're
cool.
cool.
I hope so. It's fun actually. A couple of my students are work in publishing. Like
That's
I see them
fun.
at stuff,
So
which like
crazy.
it's
Isn't that
nice.
great?
Yeah. So
Love it.
I think just that cumulative experience of getting to work, what like you actually speak to the people who are reading, and I think that publishing is amazing in many ways, but I think everyone who works in publishing should have been a librarian or a bookseller before they work in publishing,
Yeah.
because nothing quite gives, like just talking to real people who read or
Yeah.
don't read or only
Right.
read 3 books a year. And I think it's just invaluable insight. Um,
Well, I think it would also keep you on your toes, like as you observe, like, oh, she's a
Hmm.
cool girl. Maybe like
yeah,
that makes you think about the character, the main character. I've seen Tara do this with how you recommend books, like really zeroing in on the person. That takes a lot of knowledge about what's out there too.
I
Hmm.
miss that as well. I still love that like book prescription thing, and I still
It
like to do
is
it
so fun.
online. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just there's nothing quite like when someone, when someone tells you what they love to read, and you're like, oh my goodness, I know. Yeah, I just
I
have a book
see
I
the
just
rabbit
know you're
hole.
going to
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
It just never gets old, does it? It's always fun recommending books to people that you just know. And when someone tells you they've loved a book you recommended, like it's just the best feeling. So it's probably
It's
why I ended up
magic.
writing a book full of books. Once a librarian, always a
Yes.
librarian. All my books are full
Yes.
of book
Yeah.
But those are like
recommendations.
my favorite books. I don't know, like because I'm such a bookish kid. I grew up a
Right.
bookish kid. But it
Yeah.
is so fun to see. I never get sick of seeing my favorite stories revisited, like ever. It just
Yeah.
never happens.
I mean, I keep coming back to them. I mean, everything I write is really to do with books. Like I have a adult rom-com coming out next year, which is very much to do with Pride and Prejudice. I just think I just can't. I think it's that like I'm a writer because I'm a reader. I can't take the reader part
Cannot,
away of
yeah.
me when I'm writing. And so, and also just it's fascinating, isn't it? Like, I think I just love thinking about why books, which books we fall in love with as individuals, but also as broader societies. Like, why do some books become so beloved? Why do some books, I'm going to not name names, but why do some books that might not be like, I don't want to, because I have absolute respect for any book that people love to read, but like some books become such a thing and they're like
Yeah.
not necessarily like what's, I don't, because I'm genuinely not like I'm not, you can't be like a children's librarian and be snobby about it, but you know
It's
what I
true.
mean. And I'm like, there's books that don't do anything for me that have become huge
Yeah,
juggernauts,
of
and but
course.
like I'm
Yes.
interested in that regardless. Like, and I think also when I was doing like book wandering as well, why does a world feel like a world? You can't just put the character names in. How, when I'm doing the book wandering scenes, is it really clear that this is Wonderland Oz, not just because Dorothy is there? And I think that when I was
Mm,
writing Alice, that was something I really thought about because I think that Wonderland often, obviously, a lot of people do riffs, retellings inspired by. And I think that it's easy to feel like if you just put the characters in there, that's what makes it feel like Wonderland. But the Hatter being there isn't what makes it feel like Wonderland. It's the writing and the wordplay and the nonsense and
You're
how
so
do
good
you
at it.
make oh
You're
you're
so
kind.
good at it's so
I really
fun.
appreciate that. I mean, I did a
that's tricky to do.
lot of studying essentially. Like I think like
Yeah.
I really like studied it
Channeling Carol
and
101.
I mean, I'm not sure. Let's. I don't think we could be that bold, but I really tried really hard to like pull apart why does Wonderland feel like Wonderland, and then how do
Like a
I
writing
then
desk. Yes.
write?
I love that.
Nice. And yeah, so like pull it apart, and then how can I then build that back up?
Mhm.
And yeah, I tried really hard.
It's like a
Succeeded. Very
deconstructed
nice.
latte. Like,
Yeah.
here's this, and we're gonna
Yes.
put it all
Yeah.
together in our
But
own
it
way.
totally is. It totally is.
That's cool.
So I did. I really relied on the annotated Alice, which is a book
Mhm.
by. Oh my goodness, I'm going for Mark. This is bad form. I've forgotten his surname, but it has extensive footnotes for both of the Wonderland books, and it really kind of pulls out all of the references. I think that really unlocked it for me because I think that so many of the references in the book are lost to time in terms of their references to
Mm-hmm.
people and politics and jokes and songs that have fallen out of history. So we
Right.
can see a lot of the references and understand them. But I think that sometimes one could perceive Wonderland as some references and some just silliness, but really nothing in it is silliness. Nothing is unintentional. And I think going through that book where he was like, this is a reference to this political scandal that happened, which we just don't remember, like just hasn't stuck in history, really made me realize that that is one of the key building blocks to making it feel nonsensical. All of the wordplay and jokes, like it can't just be like daft for the sake of daftness. It needs to be rooted in something. And I wanted my book is set in 1919 after the war, and I wanted to make sure that all of the references were contemporary as well. So there's not references to things or jokes or songs or books that were written after 1919. Actually, that's I cheated slightly. There's a reference to a poem that was written just after 1919, but it's
We'll
about
let it
World War
slide.
One. It's because there's a like not with a bang, but like with a whimper. There's a reference to that poem, which is actually written a little bit later, but it's about the
It's okay.
period, and it's
I
such
think
a good.
it
It
works.
worked so well for the
Yeah.
book that that's the one excuse I like let myself have.
Hmm.
Um, so I did a lot of just reading of around the period and what was happening, and reading poems and things that were written like before and around the same time to try and pull that into the nonsense.
That's so incredible. That's so much work, like even before you start putting it down on the page. So that's awesome. Thank you for walking us
Uh,
through that.
oh no, thank you for letting me talk about it. Sorry,
Of
I'm
course.
not very good at short answers, as you'll be learning.
We love it.
We like the long
So,
answers.
yeah. Give us all the long answers. So your debut book series, as we mentioned before, Pages and Co. We have our 11-year-old heroine, Tilly. She lives in her grandparents' bookshop, which is obviously, I think, anyone's dream who
Dreams.
loves books. Like, I'm
Yeah.
here for that. That sounds great. So you've mentioned this a little bit, but what was kind of like the initial spark for that series? It's a 6-book series. So what sort of grabbed your attention and your imagination of like, let's dive into this, let's create this kind of hopping around the worlds. How did you get into that?
So, I mean, I think there's obviously just the general foundation of what we've been talking about of being a
Hmm.
reader and a librarian. I this is the there's like there's no fake answer, but there's varying levels of frankness. But for this audience, I think I can probably be it's just less romantic, the honest answer. I think people
Hmm. They want the
um
romance.
so I was working for the bookseller when I sold Pages, which is the UK equivalent of like Publishers Weekly. Um,
Mm.
so I was very involved in how publishing worked. And you know what? This is why I don't normally say this because people don't like it. Is that because I was very fortunate that I had several agents approach me and ask me if I was writing anything. And I think
Hmm.
that like it's not a romantic story and it also is like nepotism, but like they were approaching me because I was writing I wrote two
Yeah.
pages in the magazine every week, and I also managed our reader-facing blog. Um, so,
You
and
were
it was very
working. It's
much,
not like you were discovered in a
Yeah.
mall. Like, hey,
and it's,
you,
I think I
can
have
you
some like
write?
Imagine
lingering,
authors being discovered in a mall,
Right?
yeah,
Like, I saw
like a
that letter you
model.
wrote.
yeah.
Um,
It's and it was very like not like it was very like I don't suppose you like are you writing? It wasn't like please write a book or here's an idea. It was very like I enjoy your journalism. Do you write fiction?
discussion.
Yes.
Yeah,
Wow, I
And
love that.
totally.
I wasn't partly because I think when super involved in books, you're so aware of how many books are written,
Mm.
how many books are published, and how
It is
few of
crazy.
those actually find readers. And I was really didn't
Yes.
want to like just try and write something because I was fortunate enough to like have the opportunity that somebody would take it seriously. Um, but that was kind of in the back of my head. And then I was thinking about an article about what we would say to the characters that had made us as children. Um, and, Rooted, I used to write various bits inspired by being a librarian. And like, I was like, oh, that'd be fun. Maybe I could interview some other authors about like which characters had a big impact. Like, what would you do? And so I was like, well, like, what would I do if I could hang out with Anne Shirley? Also, I feel like anyone
Yes.
listening has heard an alternate version of this story. I apologize. It makes it seem like I am like schizophrenic. It's just that I just
I'm
pull
sure
in
you've told it
different,
many times, so
like,
it's
all of it is real. I just sometimes
yeah.
leave bits of it out.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that I was thinking about that and I was thinking about Anne Shirley. And then I was like, you know what? Like I think there's more to this. I think there's a story in this that's not journalism. I think there's maybe something here to explore. And actually, I had a drink with Kate Randall, who's a dear friend of mine, and I was actually like, I've had this idea. I think maybe there's a book in this. Do you want the idea? And she was like, no, you should write it. So I did.
Fascinating.
And then I got an agent off of that. And then yeah, then the rest is very normal. But that's yeah, so that's the honest answer for how it all came about, which is, as I say, not very romantic.
And did you know it would be a series from book one? Yeah.
So I didn't when I first started writing it. It was a much smaller story. It was all initially based in Pages and Co. with characters coming into the bookshop. There was none of the other way around. When we sold it on a partial, and then as I was writing it, I emailed my editor and I was like, I actually think I know I sold you on this synopsis, but I actually think I'm missing a trick because there's so much potential here if it works both ways. And of course, it ended up being almost entirely the other way, and hardly anyone ends up popping into the bookshop in the end. And so it all just kind of grew from there. But they did buy three books. I thought it was a standalone when we sold it. They wanted three books. And then as I was writing it, I was like, oh no, actually, I'm glad because there is actually, if you
Yes. Yeah.
expand it out, there's just so much you can do with it. And then I was very fortunate that the book found readers and was supported by booksellers. So then we sort of had a conversation about if there was more story, which is why the second half of the series has its kind of like Milo is a key character and has its own arc because I'm sure we've all read series where there's a bad twist at the end of a book and
Yeah.
it's so obvious that they were just given more books in the deal and I don't begrudge them, but I really didn't want to do a sort of like, and also like I really knew where I wanted to get Tilly to at the end of the third book and I really didn't want to like I didn't want to add a bad twist in to shift like the emotional journey of that third book. So I'd said, well, I'd love to write more, but can I use this secondary character to kind of take over a little bit? And then Tilly and everyone comes back into it, but like she's not really in the fourth book at all. Um, and that was how I sort of yeah, you know, I was very keen to write more whilst also wanting to make sure it felt organic and I was sort of doing the story and the characters justice.
Ah, yes. I love hearing this. This is so cool.
Hmm.
So like we were saying before, you eventually wandered into Oz in the fourth
Yes.
book, Book
Yes. Yeah.
Smugglers,
Yes.
which is
Woo!
me on the daily at my place of work, feeling like I'm
Books.
smuggling out
Yeah.
more books. What parts of Oz were you the most excited to add in to this book?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, so as I say, I hadn't read the
For the
books
fans, you
before.
know?
Yeah. And so I went into reading the original books, obviously with the famous scenes in my head, but aware that I wasn't sure how they would be in the books. I think I partly came to Oz as well that I needed so much the book wandering is like a logistical requirement of what you need. Like you need magic or you need something scary or
Hmm.
um and I needed somewhere that someone might be hiding, like a book wanderer might be hiding. So I was thinking that was kind of a lot of where it came from, and Oz just seemed like such a good fit for where you might need to go and track
I like
someone
the Italian
down.
version too,
Yes.
it being like in an Italian copy.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's it like yeah, it all came, although I'm gonna say, yeah, having to you always come up with that idea and then you're like, oh, like I had to like there was anyway, this is an interesting. I kept getting tripped up by Italian. Yeah. So it's
Makes
just
sense.
like
Yeah, you're like,
that.
why did I do this to myself?
I love the idea of that, like, yeah, hiding within a book, or like where would you go if you were, and like what layers would you add in? Um, do you know what? You threw me there because I'm not gonna lie, for a second I was like, what are you talking about? Because I wrote that book like 8 years ago.
Yeah, I love this so much.
I
You're like, can you
shouldn't say,
remind me?
I
I'm
shouldn't
listening
say
to
that on a
a pod.
podcast.
No, no, no. I'm listening to a podcast
But then
right
I was like, oh
now.
yes, oh my goodness, yes, because that was a key point. But I'm just really, you know what?
You know
I'm
what?
deep
Taylor
in.
Swift forgets her own
No,
lyrics.
no, I mean it makes sense. Like we're doing a whole episode, an off-roading episode into the television show Felicity M and I called
Oh,
Osculated,
fun.
which was my favorite television show when I was like 11. So I'm revisiting it now, listening to a podcast that brings the actors on. They don't remember plot lines. Like they can't even
Yeah.
remember filming things. So I'm like, of course, like this was
We've had
20
guests
years
on who were
ago.
like, we're asking them about a project. Yeah. And they're like, to be honest, I don't remember this.
Yeah, that's actually really reassuring because I always feel
Yeah.
really guilty. Sometimes I do book clubs with kids about the first book, and they have like, and I,
And you're like,
it's
oh my God, I need
it's
to
They're
read
so
it.
nitty-gritty
magical.
details.
Yeah,
You're
that
like, I don't know.
I like it means the world to me that they care that much about it, but kids often have very, very specific questions about how the magic works.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think also just, at the moment I'm drafting one book and I'm structurally editing another book. And I think there's just a level of like, I often remember how I felt when I was writing things.
Yeah, that makes the
The
most sense.
Sure.
specifics have been lost to time. Also, I just don't think when you're in the world, like when I was writing pages, I could tell you anything about it. but you kind of have to clear a lot of it out to be able to exist fully in the
To
thing
move
that
Yes.
you're
forward.
doing at the
Yes.
moment, because it starts to
Yeah.
get muddled, and human brains, I don't think, can hold that much
That's too
information.
much.
It's so
Um,
crazy. And this makes me feel like we've talked to Gregory Maguire. That man has to answer questions about Wicked. Like
And it's
it
a
just
four
like
book series. Yeah.
yeah, like and I am amazed by how he continues to answer the same thing like 80 million
yeah,
times with a new
In a
twist, maybe.
refreshing way.
Yeah, in a
good
refreshing
for
way, but
him.
I'm also like, wait, he doesn't remember what you just asked. Like you could feel that
He's not
sometimes.
thinking about it as
Yeah, like
presently as we are, you know.
this isn't what when he wakes up in the morning, he's probably not thinking about Alphaba. Like she's
Right.
probably
I wonder.
pushing.
It's just the nature of it. Like at the moment, like I'm working on the adult book, like
You're
Pride and
in
Prejudice.
this.
I am
Yes.
like insanely focused
Yes.
on. You could ask me anything, and I would have a very
You
strong
probably
Yeah.
have
opinion
so
of
many fun
it.
facts right now.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Right. And it's just and then I'm going to swap back because I'm doing a second Wonderland book, so I'll be back in that headspace. And actually, oh my God, speaking of Oslo, we didn't talk about Wicked because I read that when I was a school librarian and had no idea that it was
Cool.
as it was. And
Mm-hmm.
I started as a school librarian when I was 21, so I was young.
Wow.
So I probably read Wicked when I was like 22, and I was really disconcerted by it in the sense of just because I'd only seen the film. And I think as I'm sure many people who have seen the film and are going back to it. And I remember really enjoying isn't quite the right word. I was really interested by it, but
Same.
it's a
It's a beast.
It's a big
bracing read, a beast.
undertaking.
Yeah, that's part of the thing, isn't it? The whole beast of it.
Yes. Yeah.
It's hard
Mm-hmm.
for I think some people
Mm-hmm.
to move into the book coming from the
I always
musical.
warn people.
Right.
I'm like, just so
Yes,
you
Yeah.
I think
know,
it's its own thing.
this is different.
The character
And
names are the same.
yeah,
That's the
That's
it's
about
basic
it.
premise.
I think as well
Basic
just
premise.
I
Like
hadn't
seed.
read a lot of books probably by that age that have I think I was just still very used to happy endings and everything being wrapped
Mm.
up neatly. And I think
Nope.
That is not
actually
Gregory's
Nope.
no,
You don't know so
MO.
much. He leaves you
what
alone.
what I think that was actually even though the sort of more shocking moments but the thing that's really stayed with me from the book is that I felt disconcerted by the lack of resolution and happy endings, I think, more than anything else. I think I just
Yeah.
hadn't read a lot of books that were so kind of brutal almost with their readers.
It
Mm-hmm.
is
And it was just
brutal.
like a new reading experience for me, which
Yeah.
I'm not sure, I still don't know if I liked it or disliked it. It was just, but I
Mm-hmm.
can really remember reading it because it was very
That's
different
interesting.
to things I'd read before.
Oh God,
Yeah.
yeah.
That makes sense. And even when
I
you
Yeah.
keep
ask
meaning to
Gregory
go back to
questions, he
it.
won't give you the answer.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
we tried.
Oh.
We tried to be like boop, boop, doop, doop, doop. And he just
He's
Yeah.
says
like,
like, "Well,
well,
what do
what do
you think?"
you think? He
Oh my
was
goodness,
a
the
I love it.
wise
classic.
teacher. Yes,
I
yes.
love
Yes,
it.
that's a good one in the author arsenal is when you
Yes.
can't remember.
I think it
You're like,
I
what's your thought?
I do
I
think
should
though
use that
like
more.
it is great because it really like allows I think like we've said this before too with like covering Wicked and like breaking down the book so hard. Probably my most favorite conversations because there is so much left unanswered. So it does
Yeah.
ask you to
Yeah.
become a
It's
detective
great
of
for a
Oz.
podcast
Great for
Yes.
munching, for a word
To
munching.
talk
It's
about.
so good because you
Yeah.
could,
Yeah.
go off-roading a million different ways. So it is so fun and like it's life. We don't have
Yeah.
answers
Yeah,
most of
for
the
Hmm.
time.
sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it really is great in that lesson that I think I always need to be reminded of like not everything is
Mm,
black and white.
for sure.
Totally.
I think
Yeah.
I always enjoy reading things as well that make me think about what I value in fiction and what I want from a book and what's my comfort zone. And sometimes it's good to read outside your comfort zone. Sometimes, though, it's like okay to be like, this is not what I need from fiction, especially I think when the world is tricky. I
Hmm.
think it's okay to. I think what we need from fiction is often, yeah, very directly related to what's happening in real life. And I certainly know I can cope with more distressing fiction when the world is more stable. And at the moment, I
Yeah.
find myself going more and more to I'm
Yep.
less, I don't want to read dark stuff at the moment as much as I did 10 years
Yeah,
ago
that
because
makes
this it's happening in real
I
life.
understand.
makes
I just
sense.
read Giselle Pellicot's book, her memoir that came
Oh,
out, and
yeah.
I now need like I'm reading
You need
your
YA.
books. I'm reading your
Yeah.
books. I was like,
Yeah.
I need to take a breather because it was very, very heavy. Like I had to put that book
Yeah.
down several
Mm-hmm.
times. And it
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah.
also like what I'm also seeing on the news right now
Of
with like all the
course.
Epstein
Yeah.
survivors. It's just like it's
Right.
too
Right.
much.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Have
I
to take a
agree.
break. Yeah.
Have to take a break. Well, to
That's
get
why I
us
watch Love is
into
Blind.
this
Yeah.
is true.
Oh,
That's
We
my
need these
that's my
things.
break.
We need these things. So to get us into Alice with a Y.
oh
So
yeah.
it really feels like we were saying, like channeling Carol 101. Like you have so much of the original whimsy intact. You are like the like overdosing on riddles and absurdity is so there, and it's like so effortless. I really felt like I was reading something not from this time. I was like, this feels like it was
Oh,
an immediate follow up
thank you
to
so
Alice in Wonderland.
much.
It's
Which is so
beautiful.
special.
So you have been walking us through and like all this research that you've laid out that you do beforehand before you start writing. So
Mhm.
what do you feel like was the key to tapping in to
Hmm.
that, but also concocting something completely new because we also love the new characters that your Wonderland
Thank
introduces.
you.
Yeah.
It was a real mix of stuff. So on the one hand, there was the very like academic approach to it, which was apps which we've talked about, that was, I think, was an absolute necessity to understanding it from a more technical perspective. I did a lot of walking around the woods. I live in North London and I live close to Highgate Woods, which is an ancient wood, and it is I my
So cool.
basically like backup plan always is to just
I
go
want to live
and
by an
walk around the
I
ancient
woods.
want to
wood.
be by a wood.
It is, and you know what? I'm so excited. There's bluebells in it. The bluebells are going to come out soon, and
Ancient
it's
bluebells.
magical. It's magical. I'm not sure the bluebells are ancient, but
Yeah,
specifically,
those might
but
be newer.
They're
yeah,
ancestors.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I listened to a lot of nonsense poetry on audio whilst wandering around the
Oh,
woods.
that's
So Edward
fun.
Lear and Lewis Carroll to just get that cadence in my brain. I actually wrote
It's like
most
you're in
of
the Olympics for
yeah.
poetry.
That's
You're like,
cool.
I'm
Like
training, I'm just
training,
listening.
yeah,
Yes.
essentially. Because I think just
Focus.
getting that rhythm is crucial. And it's what I used to do with book wandering scenes as well. I
So
think
fun.
finding that cadence of how people talk when I'm working on the Pride and Prejudice thing, I I have like a liminal window where I find I talk like that for a bit after I've been focused on writing. I start
Yes.
using different rhythms because I'm
Hmm.
so in that world. So yeah, I did a lot of wandering, listening to notes, but I wrote most of the nonsense poem in the woods. I
I
this
love
sounds
that.
again, this is the opposite of this is if people want romantic things. It is like literally I was wandering the woods and I would have like rhymes just
Yes.
come to me. Um, like there's a line in the nonsense poem where it says, perhaps this condition requires a physician. And it just came to me. And
Ah,
it's such a tricky rhyme, but like it just was like
question.
there. Um, and
It
I
reminded me
love
of
it.
Lin-Manuel. He said, like, when he was writing Hamilton, especially My Shot, he was like, that took me years, but I would walk through this park up in Inwood and like just speak it out loud and it would come to me.
yeah,
So,
more than anything I've ever written, this book came to me. I think,
hmm.
although I say that, you don't have that experience if you haven't done the research and the academic
Right.
work first.
Yeah.
But more than anything else, I've never really experienced sort of like having very like just visuals flash into my brain. And this one, it did. Like the title just was there. I had a very,
It's so
very clear
clever.
image. Oh,
Mm,
thank you. Um, I mean, it's lucky as
Gorgeous
well, isn't it?
cover
Like
too.
such a
ha
fun play on words.
the
It
serendipity
feels
though of just Alice being in there's so
It
few names
works.
that you could do that with. Like it's just
Yeah.
serendipitous. Sometimes think like it is a book that has felt serendipitous in many, many ways. It's
Hmm.
both the hardest book that I've written and also the one that's been the
Mm,
most sort of magical and serendipitous. So
it's
yeah,
cool.
I just love the
It's,
cover feeling like your
oh,
I
walks. It feels like
know.
the walks that you were describing.
The
they are. I'm
ancient
so
bluebells.
lucky with the cover. And the paper cut is a real paper cut. So she's called Isabel Ousman and she's a paper artist. And so she had a copy
Oh,
of Alice, obviously not about not
wow.
to stress people out. It was just a random paperback. It wasn't a valuable edition.
It's
Not a
okay. It
first
wasn't a
edition, don't
rare
worry.
first.
But she really has cut, I think when you look at it, you can see it's real paper. So it's hand
Yeah.
colored
That's
and
so cool.
cut that was then photographed. Every layer was photographed.
So
We
the
had
old Alice
the
is there.
Oh, that's
Yes,
pretty.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we actually had to like make sure that the text, the last page was like a text that made it clear that it was
Beautiful.
what words we wanted visual. So, and I've seen the original book, and Blackwell's in Oxford had it on display for a little bit as well, and
It's
it's
cool.
it's an incredible. She's just she's very talented. And actually, I should shout out that the internal illustrations are done by someone else. They're done by someone called Matthew Land, who is an
Hmm.
incredibly talented illustrator and I think does such a beautiful job of kind of honoring Tenniel's style whilst also bringing freshness and his own thing whilst also
Yeah.
being in conversation with Tenniel's original style and characters. He does such a good job. I cried when I saw the art for the first time. It's so perfect.
It really does
Yeah.
add so much and like gels perfectly with the book.
Hmm.
He's so talented.
Yeah. Great team. So let's talk about the similarities in these journeys into Wonderland and Oz.
Okay.
Any crossover that you see?
Oh, you know what the honest answer is? I'm not sure explicitly that was something that I thought about. I think there's that there's the fact that they're both part of that tradition that
Yeah.
is my favorite thing basically in fiction is those portal fantasies. And I think that entry into another world and also just the logistics of how you do it is interesting as
Yeah,
well, isn't it?
totally.
Uh, Probably more influenced by reading that novelization and the horror of the flood. The flood is like
Yeah,
I was
definitely.
like, let's avoid that feeling. Um, I think what's interesting with Wonderland and Oz is are they real? And
Yeah.
how much as an author you want to pin down whether it's real or not, or how much the fun is that it's not pinned down. And
Mhm.
the sort of waking up from a dream. I think they both probably, I don't know, would you say it's fair to say that they are similar in that the originals are similar in that, like, how, I don't know, you're the Oz experts. How would you say I mean, then the film and the books are different as well, of
Yeah.
course. So it's
Right.
like they're
That's the answer.
different. And I'm thinking
That's
probably more about
exactly
the
it.
film still.
There's so
Yeah.
many discussions we've had about this
Yeah.
where there's
Yeah.
not like a definitive answer. We've had many opinions about the film of like, was it a dream? Was it real? I think the books, it feels more, it's a real place. She actually
Aunt
Right,
Em and
goes,
right.
Uncle
you
Henry
know,
moved there.
they're gonna
Yeah.
Right,
move
of
there.
course. Yeah,
It's a
yeah, yeah.
residence. So,
Yeah.
Yes.
but
So the Alice, the book, obviously, very explicitly, the original has her waking up from a dream at the end,
Yep.
and mine is a lot more nebulous than
I like it.
that. Um,
mm,
I feel like it's open to interpretation, whilst also, I don't know how you feel about spoilers for my own book. Are you happy for me to talk about
No.
the ending, or would
Yeah,
you prefer me
yeah,
not to?
I would love for you to share like about this new Alice that
Mhm.
we get to meet within this book and like why is she in Wonderland? Why is this a journey she must go on?
mhm,
Because so my Alice has grown up with her grandma, the original Alice, telling her stories of Wonderland, which she just assumes are invented. And um,
mm,
I think that the necessity of having another character go to Wonderland means that you are essentially saying it exists in some
right.
real way because it's the same place. If it's a dream, you can't go to someone else's dream, you know. And at the end, there's also something that happens with the original Alice, you know. Like I tried to keep it. My editor actually wanted me to pin down more specifically whether it was real or not, and I really pushed back I was like, I think I've said enough. I think if you think about it, it kind of has to be real because of she's going back to the same place and meeting the same people. But I would prefer not to pin it
Mm.
down any more specifically than
Pulled a Gregory.
that. Yeah, yeah,
If you
yeah, yeah.
support.
What do you think? Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
well.
but I mean, again, I'll be non-specific, but she brings a physical object back from Wonderland at the end of the book. So like, I feel like I'm making it clear what I think.
Mm.
So yeah, she tumbles in a similar way. She falls through a pond that she falls literally through and down into a sort of rabbit hole-esque um, tunnel. And I wanted it obviously to mirror the original whilst also having its own. Do you know, I think one of the key differences is that in the original, it is, and I don't mean this with disrespect, there's no plot. Like, she stumbles, it's very much a series of vignettes. Like, she stumbles
Yeah.
from vignette to
No,
vignette,
this
and that's what it's
Alice is
supposed to be.
going
That's
through
what,
something. She's
right.
going
And
through something.
she wakes up, she hasn't, like, and again, I don't think you have to, child characters don't have to learn things, but she doesn't learn anything. It's a dream, it's a whimsical journey. And I think that the original, it was in many ways the first children's book. It was the first children's book that wasn't didactic or preachy or
Right.
moralizing and that was
Hmm.
just for
Hmm.
pleasure. And so you can't judge it by the standards of what we expect children's fiction to do now because it was a
Right.
new thing. But obviously, writing a book now does come with different expectations for what fiction is, what children's fiction is, and also just what I'm interested in writing. So I did want to give my Alice more of an emotional arc. So I wanted to honor
I
that
love your
feeling.
first chapter. The things you
Oh,
need to
thank
know
you.
before we begin.
Yeah, that's cute.
Thank
That's a
you.
To set
perfect
up
Thank
way to
you.
start.
who is this kid? Yeah.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
enjoyed doing the chapter titles. I really enjoyed writing in this
The
narrative
chapter
voice
titles
as
are great.
well. Oh,
Yes, they're
thank
Very
so
you.
fun.
fun. Look
Hmm.
elsewhere for a moral love.
Thank you, thank you.
The
And it's also
whimsy.
that's the thing. It's sort of like trying to do a nod and a wink at the like,
Yes.
have you learned anything? Do you need to learn anything? But yeah, my Alice is on a very
Hmm.
specific, like she's on a journey, so it honors that rhythm of vignette and stumbling from character to character through Wonderland. But she has an emotional journey over the top of that. And also, crucially, the inclusion of the Fox character is a
The
departure from
fox.
how Lewis Carroll works. She has a guide through Wonderland who is on her side, who is nonsensical, but does help her. And that is, there's no equivalent. That
He
is,
feels Ozian to me because he feels more like good witch
oh,
energy.
oh,
Like he
I
has
love
like,
that. Okay.
I'm
yeah, he
here to
has a
guide
little,
you.
yeah, there's not like just kind of blabbering back some stuff to make her more confused or
Right.
befuddled.
And that is
There's
a
an
departure.
actual like paternal figure
Hmm.
But
coming
yes.
from the fox.
Yes, because of course, what we haven't talked about, and a key part of the emotional journey, is that my Alice has lost her father, who is the original
Yeah.
Alice's son, during the war. And she is processing her grief, and the journey through Wonderland is part of her processing that grief.
It's so
And we
beautiful.
won't do spoilers, but yeah,
Hmm.
the fox, as you say, is a paternal figure and
Hmm.
is helps her
So sweet.
work out how to be in the world without her father. So obviously that is like a big emotional theme that is different.
It's so beautiful. I'm just
Oh,
having
thank
flashbacks
you.
to
I know one
everything that
of
happens with the fox.
one
It's
of
Oh,
so
my
good.
favorite
thank I
illustrations is seems spoilery,
okay.
Yeah,
but
I know. I'm like,
it has the fox.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's and that another thing that just came to me, like that scene, I could just the scenes I really saw very vividly were the fox at the check oh my goodness, what do I call it? The check-in
papers.
gate.
Where are
Yeah.
your papers?
Right.
Like the
Right.
turnstile.
Yes.
And I could see the scene with the stars, shall we say, like that.
Hmm.
I could
Hmm.
just see that. And then the scene at the very end with grown-up Alice, as in original Alice, um, at
Yeah.
the checkpoint. Like
That's so hot.
those
You
were
had
like the three
checkpoints.
beats.
Yeah.
Checkpoint, that's it.
In your
Um,
mind,
Yes.
yeah.
and those were just like kind of there. The story built itself very organically. I often find when I've been, it's funny when people say like, where do you get your ideas for? Like, I have ideas all the time, but most of them aren't good, or they're like a fun concept.
I feel
But
like that's
I think,
needed. Yeah. Just get them all,
right.
like go through them. Hmm.
And a sign that an idea is good for me is that my brain starts working on it in the background
Yeah.
without me concentrating on it. Like an Alice, as soon as I
Yeah.
had the concept for it, my brain was writing the book and giving me these images. And I always think that that is, if you have an idea and then your brain isn't interested in thinking about it kind of subconsciously, that's for me always a sign that there's not a whole novel in it. Whereas if
Sure.
the opposite happens, you have to think about a book so long.
For a long
And
time.
it's such a commitment, time and emotions wise, that you need something that your brain is interested in.
And wants to keep thinking about. I always say that with
Yeah,
songs. Like if you're writing a song and then it's stuck in your head later in the day, it's like, oh, that's maybe something I should like continue with.
I love so you
Um,
write music.
I'm a music teacher and I teach songwriting as well
Oh,
and
I
like have
love
written
that.
songs.
Okay.
And so that's like a little nugget that I try to keep with me.
I
Not
lo Yeah, it's
always. I feel like it's not black and white, but
no, for sure.
yeah,
But it's a good sign when your brain is just subconsciously
yeah,
interested in something, I think, and
totally.
producing story and images for you
Yeah,
without you trying. And obviously,
yeah,
there's a lot of work to stitch it all together, but I think you've got to trust what your brain is trying to do.
totally.
That doesn't sound too pretentious.
This so real quick, the grandmother to granddaughter relationship reminds me of an Oz horror film where it's called Gale Yellow Brick
Stop.
Road,
Why are you
where
bringing that here to this poor
it's
woman who read the Joan
I'm just
Divinge
saying. I
novella
know
to add to the
it's gonna be
horrors?
as traumatizing. We haven't seen it, but we've seen like a trailer, like a short snippet of it. But
Okay.
it's like in the Oz world, it's like Dorothy's the grandma,
Okay.
and then she
She's
has her
on well.
granddaughter. But she doesn't want her to go to Oz. So just in
Okay.
case you want to, feel trauma again, go
Thanks.
for it.
I can't watch horror films.
Yeah.
We
I
haven't
get
seen it yet
them.
because that's the
We
reason
haven't
for me
seen it.
too. I
But
Yeah.
I
don't
was
know if
like,
I
oh,
want to do it.
there's a through
Yes.
line here.
It isn't. There's a hap my book has a happy ending.
Yeah,
It
it's
does.
not
Yeah,
in
don't
any
worry. It's
way.
absolutely beautiful. Like I
The
think I
only connection
cried.
is that.
I think I
Oh,
cried. I may have cried. It's so
I'm
beautiful.
glad.
It's
Like that's such a weird thing about being an author, isn't it? When you're like,
You're like,
yes, when
yeah,
you make
they
people cry.
cried.
But
I'm making people cry.
no, it's really good. It's
I
really
love
sweet. And I
this.
thank
recommend
you.
it for adults especially because it'll hit
Thank you.
differently. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Thank
remembering your
you.
own childhood, like heavy
totally.
things.
I hope so. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in America on the 4th of July, we're commemorating our country's independence. In the UK on that same
I
day, it
rolled
is
my eyes.
Alice in Wonderland Day, which I
Oh,
would rather be celebrating.
that's
Yeah, you're like,
hilarious.
where are you going with this? So
Yeah.
how does one celebrate Alice in Wonderland Day?
Because we would like to celebrate
Because
that
we're
instead
doing
Oh
at
it.
my
this
goodness, yeah.
moment.
I mean, I think it's pretty much an open invite.
Okay, great.
Like the bulk of the celebrations happen in Oxford, where Carol lived and taught,
Let's
and the
go.
whole like Oxford, the nearest Saturday to that date is Alice Day in Oxford, and the whole city becomes Alice. There's like talks and
What?
events and
Oh,
crafts and stuff for kids, and people dress up, and the Lewis Carroll Society does stuff, and the Story Museum there does stuff, and it's amazing. But like people, like bookstores will celebrate it, and alas, it is not an official holiday. We do not get time
it should
off.
be a government holiday. Come
That's
Yeah.
the
on.
next step.
But it's very much, I think, anyone who
We need
wants
an
to get
Oz
involved
day
can get
here.
involved. Yes.
There should be
I'm not
Wonderland
sure
and Oz days.
how it
Yes.
started, who decided that we were going to do it, but yeah, do come to Oxford for Alice in Wonderland Day.
Okay.
Great. Great way to celebrate our country.
Yeah.
Go to
I
another
love
one.
it. Now here's just fun question for you, if anything pops
Okay.
up. How would you imagine Dorothy and Alice getting along? And
That's
it could be
really
your
interesting.
Alice, and
It's fun.
it could be like traditional Alice.
But this is the thing because we have so many versions of, well, and we have more than one version of Dorothy as
Dorothy
well,
too, yeah.
because it's hard
Hmm.
to, like, my brain is a mix of the book and Return to Oz and the film.
She's one of my
Um,
favorite Dorothy's. Return to Oz Dorothy is one of my favorites.
yeah, she's great. She's really
She's
dealing with a
great.
lot. I think, well, I do think my Alice and original Alice are different because how I sort of approach the character was they are innately a very similar personality type, but the original Alice has lived in a time of relative peace and comes from a wealthy background. What would happen if you had that natural curiosity, but you've experienced trauma because you've lived through the First World War? So she's a little less prickly and a little more introspective. The original Alice is pretty like, I love her, but she's like, she can hold her own. She's always like jibing back at the people that
Definitely.
she meets. So I think perhaps the original Alice, I think my Alice would get on well with Dorothy. I think, but again, maybe I'm getting,
They've
you know
both
what?
been
I'm
through.
getting so
Yeah.
muddled by all the different versions because I think the versions of the characters that have really been through something would really bond. Like they've been through
Yeah.
stuff in their real lives and now they've got thrust into this wild world and like what's happening. But then there's also both of them have versions of characters that are a bit more like just take everything in their stride and just like cool, let's just
Hmm.
crack on because this is happening. So it depends what combination of Alice's and Dorothy's. But I think within them there's a few good combos. But you'd have to like match them up right.
I like
Love
it.
it. Love it.
What do you think?
I do
Yeah,
think they'd get along. I think
they've seen some
Dorothy,
things.
yeah, they've seen things, but I also think Dorothy could learn from, I think Alice isn't polite, and I think
No.
Dorothy's
And
sometimes
Dorothy's
polite to a fault.
very little bit,
That's a
yeah.
good point.
About
Yeah.
Um,
her Kansas
except for when
manners
she gets really angry and throws a bucket of water, and that's kind of amazing. Like that's the
and
only
murders.
moment
Yeah.
Dorothy kind of
Yeah.
pops is, and she kills the
Yeah.
witch when she pops.
She
Hmm.
Um,
chooses her moments.
yeah,
Right.
I wonder what like. There's been so many like thrown out there, television show scripts, movie like of
Right.
bringing them together,
Yes.
but it
Books.
just has
Yep.
never happened. So I'm like wondering if, what that would
Hmm.
look like if it ever did happen. Like, what would
Yeah.
that
Totally.
be? Would it be like grounded in reality, these women living their
Mm,
lives post, or would they be
mm,
these like women
More of
who
a
are like it could also be women who are like the like what L. Frank Baum kind of set himself up to be, which was this like I'm the royal historian, children. Like I
hmm
have this antenna that
this
connects me to this
connection.
Oz,
Yeah.
and I get the stories. I'm just channeling the stories from this
mm.
magical realm. And
I
here you
always
go.
love that as a framing
I do
device for
too. It's like
fantasy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Santa.
fun.
It's Santa stuff. It's just like kind of
Totally.
maintaining that this world exists.
And
I
it gives you a lot
wonder
of
if
freedom, I think, as a writer. Like you don't
Hmm
have to get bogged
To
down so
play.
much in the like how it works.
yeah. No,
Totally.
I wonder. It's always like something that like we think we're maybe going to get someone answering that and exploring it. Just hasn't happened yet. And I think it's because it's
I
tricky.
think it will one
Yeah.
day. They balance each other
Surely.
out. They're kind of opposite in some ways, but have
Yeah.
a lot to relate over.
Hmm.
So, do you have any words of wisdom for anyone who would like to venture into their own fairy tale retelling with fresh eyes?
I think
Do your
basically it's
research.
finding that balance. Yes. I think that embrace the joy of playing in these worlds that you love whilst also finding purpose to revisiting them. I think it is
Hmm
important to have a purpose and a perspective to revisit somebody else's world. Actually, if you're trying to get published, I think if you're writing for fun, obviously, like do what brings you joy. If you're trying to get published, I think you probably need to be aware of what your perspective and purpose is for borrowing someone else's world. I think fairy tales are a bit different because they don't belong to one person so much. So I think there's a lot more freedom you can have with them because the nature of them is oral storytelling and they belong to different cultures and people already. I think I feel more anxious when it's like a person's book, even if it's out of copyright, because I feel, you have a debt to them. And I like, you know what, that on the whole, and the rule I followed with book wandering is that you can go back to the original book and your relationship with that book shouldn't be altered by anything that I have done. I don't believe in killing off characters that aren't yours and things like that. I feel like I skirted
Goodness.
quite close to the edge with
Mm,
having Alice have a son that's died in the war.
mm,
I would hate to affect anyone's relationship with the original book. I don't think that's my job, my right. I don't
mm.
want to ruin your relationship with the book that you love. So, and
Yeah.
I
Isn't that also
skirted closer to it with Alice, but
that's somewhat true, isn't it too? Like Alice Liddell, didn't she lose one of her sons? And
Oh,
oh, did she?
I think she did, and that's why
maybe.
I think I'm remembering this correctly, and I think she reattached herself to Wonderland and like did a book tour at the end of
Ah,
her, like closer to the end of her life because she was in debt. I think her
oh,
husband
Wow.
either she divorced or he passed. She was either a
okay.
widower or divorced, and then her son also. So
Oh,
she,
They had two
yeah,
sons who were killed in World War One.
there you go.
Two of
Oh,
her sons,
You
yeah.
didn't make it up
it's,
in an
do you know,
interesting way.
That's kind of
I
wild.
I quite consciously didn't go too deep into the
Because it's
real
not
life
her either.
inspiration because
Yeah.
Right.
it's not her. And also
And
Lewis
it's also
Carroll
creepy. It's creepy
Carroll is
as
a really
yeah,
complicated
yeah.
character, and
We
I
spent
very
hours on this back
We
in
spent
the
hours, yes, in our Wonderland deep
we were
dive.
yes, it's a
traumatized.
tricky one, and so I very
Yeah.
I'm
consciously
glad we mentioned it though in this episode because it is
Yes.
didn't go
a
into that.
stain. Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. But then I met, there's a lot of Alice Littles still, a lot of the people in the family still use the name Alice, obviously. And I went to an event at Christ Church College in Oxford there was an event for a donation of Alice ephemera. And I met an Alice Liddell, and I was like, I felt very awkward and uncomfortable. And I was just like, I hope you're okay with it. I don't know
Hi.
if you've read it, but you suddenly just like, yeah, there's this line of Alice Liddell's, and obviously there was members of the family there at this event, and but they're obviously very familiar with people reimagining, and I'm
Yeah.
very clear that I am interpreting the fictional novel. I
Yes.
understand that its genesis was in a real girl, but Alice in the book is a fictional character, and I'm not trying. I mean, that's an interesting thing in itself, like incorporating all of that, but it's a different book, it's a different project, it requires completely different research, it requires it's a different project, and that's not the project I was
Hmm.
doing.
Yes. Correct. Correct.
But yeah,
Cool.
it's interesting to meet people from and the Lewis Carroll Society. Thankfully, the Lewis Carroll Society have decided that they like the book. I was really nervous. They reviewed it in their
Oh,
newsletter
that's
That's
positively.
a,
nice.
So perhaps
that's
That's
huge.
begrudging, I would say
big.
begrudgingly positively, perhaps. Like the first line is like,
That's the
normally
bomb bugle
I
for
see
Oz.
no point, right? They're like, I normally see no point in books like this,
Normally
but
I
I
would
did
hate
actually like
this.
this. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I
Hmm.
will
I
take it.
had
Yeah.
low
Yeah.
expectations. Yep.
And
Oh
actually,
my
I'm doing
gosh.
an event in Oxford in April, and I just found out that the chair of the Lewis Carroll Society is interviewing me. So that
That's a
That's
feels
huge
like a
deal.
real,
wild. That's
like, I feel like
cool.
publicly they're like accepting me.
Embracing.
Yes,
Yeah.
you have been
Well,
Yeah.
embraced.
I don't know. Like, I am like, how does anything stay alive? Right? If you're
That's how
not
we feel. Yep.
freshening it up. It's like the drapes, right? If you hang the
Right.
drapes, they're gonna get dusty and then like
Got to
you're
shake
not
them
gonna go in
out.
that room
Yeah.
anymore. You have to shake them out. Like, what
Yeah.
are we doing if we're not like allowing people permission to go into these
In
lands? I
their
don't
own
know.
way.
I've never been precious with any of this. Like, I'm like,
No.
it's
And
all fun. It's a shared
copyright,
magic.
yeah, and copyright protects us like it's absolutely appropriate that you can't mess with people's stories
Correct.
straight away. But that's why copyright law exists. You
Sure.
can't, there's a big gap before you can start playing
Yeah.
around with
Right.
these stories, and that's appropriate.
100%. That
Hmm.
is appropriate. Oh my gosh, Anna, this
Totally.
has been so, so great.
So
Everyone, you
Yes,
fun.
thank
must pick up
you.
a copy of Alice with a Y. We didn't even get
Yes.
into like I love the whole the sun and the moon battle that is happening and this little
Oh,
Hmm.
girl like the whole with Alice in this story, she has like the weight of maybe solving this war that is happening in Wonderland.
That's a
And it
lot.
yeah.
also it does make me feel like kids today, especially I don't know, like where it depends on where they're growing up, but like kids are having to, I think, deal with adult things very
At a
fast right
younger
now.
age. Hmm.
Even like the papers, like her needing to have papers to travel around,
Hmm.
that is something that is like horrifying here right now, in our
Yeah.
country. Um,
Hmm.
and but even just yeah, like her being like, but I'm just a child. But it's like actually no, like we the children I think are what's gonna save. I think we always put things on them to save things because they're
Yeah.
pure and innocent and
Hmm.
their intentions haven't been like I don't know,
Yeah.
corrupted
I
by
mean,
capitalism.
that was very much like, like low key, the book is about the futility of war, and again, it's a kind of
Yeah.
opening a whole other can of worms. But, in
That's why it's so
Wonderland,
good.
there's the war between the Sun King and the Queen of the Moon. The Sun King has stolen an hour from the Queen of the Moon, which is inspired
It's
by
so good.
British
So
summertime came in
good.
over World War One here, so that was where that came from.
Interesting.
Um,
We have
but
different
the
time zones in our country because people don't
right,
agree
yeah,
like on what should be happening. It's
And
like
even
yeah.
different
Well,
exactly
states
that.
have their own, they're like, we're not going to
right.
do that.
Like Arizona
It's
won't do
Arizona
something that
doesn't,
everyone else
they
does.
don't follow it. And I think one other state
It's
is like,
like
nah,
it's so
we're
That's
not
funny.
doing that.
wild. Yeah. But that's why this is again the thing of like everything in Wonderland needs to be rooted in like that idea of arguing over hours, is rooted in that
Hours.
happens.
Yeah. Wow.
But the stars have been pulled down, and the stars ascend. There's no stars in the sky because they are like the normal,
Mm,
a huge amount of working class men in England died in the war. Like a generation of men. Um,
mhm.
and I really wanted to, in a subtle, well, it's not subtle, but as in you don't need to read it as a book about the futility of war. Like, but that
Right.
is the stars have gone because they have been pulled down and they keep being sacrificed to the war, and there are none left, and they aren't honored. And
Ugh.
and then even though at the end, when it gets resolved kind of by the by, and the Sun King and the Queen of the Moon are like, cool, okay, like great, done, and they're off to the next thing because they never really mattered that much to them, and that was a very important. It's yeah, but it's tricky. It's tricky though because we also I like found it quite a tricky needle to thread in terms of honoring you know, everyday soldiers whilst also not romanticizing war and um you know what? Yeah, it's a complicated like how we think about war and veterans and soldiers
Yeah,
and sacrifice. It's a
Totally.
complicated conversation to
Yeah.
honor real people whilst also like not yeah, it's a trick. I found it a tricky one to like get the right balance. And we had like a big debate about we have the poppies are a thing here because of the
yeah,
poppies growing, yeah,
yeah. That's a thing
Yes.
here too.
people wear poppies, but it's because it's a real thing about like there's now like if you're on there's like an expectation that you should wear a poppy, but
Mm,
the way it's kind of treated and what the money goes to is a bit complicated, and like the
mm,
balance between honoring people who've lost their lives and the
Making
war
money off of.
industry these
Yeah.
days and what our armed
yeah.
forces are being used for these days. But we had a whole conversation about how many poppies to put on the front of the book because it is a
Wow.
like a signifier of the fact that it's about the war, whilst also I didn't want
Oh.
it to tip into like it being co-opted for causes that don't speak to what I'm trying to speak to in the
Mm.
book. And like it's
Oh,
a
that's a
all
lot to
these
think
things.
about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
All
yeah,
There's
these
a
yeah.
lot to
things.
like holistic approach to it.
Well,
Yeah.
we want
So
you to
Wow.
read all these things, listeners, because it is
Yeah.
really terrific. Like I
Read
said, I,
them.
I got emotional during this book. It's really beautiful, especially if you're a Wonderland fan or a fairy tale retelling fan. This
Yeah.
is as good as it gets.
oh,
I really, really think that.
that's so kind of
And
you. Thank you.
of course, and wow, it's been so fun to dive. Like this is a perfect like
So
kind of
fun.
conclusion for us with Wonderland
Oh,
and
thank you
Oz
so much. Thank you
comparisons.
for running with me being
Yes.
too
Always.
I can't I'm not very good at being a sort of I can't help but have opinions.
No, we love
That's why we
it.
have hours, thousands
We
of
must go
episodes.
to Alice's
Yes.
Teacup the next time you're in the city too. We have to
Yes,
all go
that'd
to
be
Alice's
so
Teacup.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness.
fun.
Yes.
Have you
Great.
been?
I No, I've never heard of it.
Oh, you've gotta
Oh. Yeah,
go.
we'll go to Central
Okay.
Let
Park
us
and see her
know.
statue. We'll see her
Yep.
Oh
statue, and then we'll
Her
go.
stat.
We'll get some tea.
Stat.
my gosh, that sounds
It's really
perfect.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because when I was in New York last, it was for the Weatherwhy tour, and also I was super sick on it was my last day of
I
tour, and it
remember.
caught up with me. I
Yes.
was like barely conscious,
Yeah.
so
I
like
understand
I
that.
Been
I'm
can't
there.
just
remember
coming
it.
out of
Yeah.
a sickness. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm
Physically
sorry.
conscious.
Yeah.
All right, listeners, go pick up a copy of
Listeners.
Alice with the Y. We're so excited. And follow Anna James on
Yeah, we'll
all
link
the
all the
things. We'll
things
link
in
Oh,
the show
thank
everything.
you.
notes.
You could see what she's up to next, even if it's a
Yeah.
raunchy romance
Uh, come on, switching
coming on up.
genres.
Yes.
Yes, it's tonally different, except also tonally the same because it's still a book about books. It's just for grown-ups.
Yay!
Love it.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Anna. So thank
Anna.
you. Thank you
Thank you
so, so, so
so
much.
much. Thank you.
And
Our
thank you,
pleasure.
listeners.
Bye, listeners.
Yay!